Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Chaz Kayado, and today what we're going to be discussing is the latest chapter in my ACE dissertation process, which is chapter 2, the literature review. So my last chapter prior to this was chapter 3, because the way ACE has us write our chapters, it's 3, 2, 1, and then 4, 5. So this chapter is coming after chapter 3, and this is the literature review. And so I do have some notes here because this is a somewhat detailed overview, and I want people who are going to take chapter 2 in the future to have a good idea of what they can expect. So usually I don't have notes, but I'll be glancing down at them to make sure I don't miss anything. So first and foremost, I want to say that something I believe I've mentioned before, and I will definitely talk about in the future, because I know it's going to come up again, is preparation for the chapter. And so you want to try to have as much work done prior to entering the course as you possibly can. Okay. I know some people, especially when we first started, we technically started with the concept paper where we were picking our topic. People were trying to work through as we went, and for concept, you kind of have to do that. But when we got to chapter 3, you could tell, and then especially now that we're in chapter 2, you want to have as much done, if not the entirety of your paper, of your chapter rather, written entering the course. Now, that doesn't mean that everything is going to stay the same, and that doesn't mean that you're not going to have to go back and change things. And honestly, you may have to change entire sections of your chapter. So it's not that the idea is that, oh, I start on week 1 and I'm completely finished. The idea rather is that we have as much done as possible heading into the chapter, because while 10 weeks sounds like a very long time, 10 weeks really is not a very long time. And you're going to be doing the iterative process where you send something to your tour or your DC, and you're going to get told that changes need to be made. And so each one of those processes, as we've talked in chapter 3, with research and methodology, it's very, very similar, where they have up to 5 days, and I'm talking about your tour and your DC, they have up to 5 days from the due date to get back to you. So you may put something in for a week, whatever, and then 5 days after that due date, then get a response that say, you need to make these changes. And then you go make those changes, and you're well into the following week, if not even 2 weeks after that, and you're sending those changes back in. So as much as you can do prior, it will help you. It will help you because you can send things in immediately, and hopefully you have a tour or a DC that can get back to you quicker, and those weeks go by a lot quicker. But if you're waiting until you get to class to start writing this, it's going to be very difficult. So the literature review is 25 pages at minimum. Okay. And I know from even at one point, I think I had 24 pages and like 3/4. And specifically, my tour told me that's not long enough. It's got to be the full 25. So make sure you're getting all the way down to that 25th, in the bottom of that 25th page. And remember, your front matter, those 3 pages, those don't count. And your pardon me, your references do not count. So this is 25 pages of pure literature review. Okay, so have as much of that done as possible. And so I also want to say I'm recording this. Actually, I'm recording it on the last day of this class. So technically I still, I guess I have a few more hours of this class left, but I've completed everything I need to. So this is all still fresh in my mind. So this video will actually go up probably maybe 2 or 3 weeks after I film this. So anyways, the next thing would be to make sure you are on the same page with your dissertation chair, your committee member, as well as your teacher of record, your TOR. So if you have a teacher of record that is requiring different things, requiring a different way of writing than your dissertation chair, just remember, first thing, keep an open line of communication, okay? Let your dissertation chair know if there are any issues. It's going to be the best way to handle things. I know that some people had gotten really stressed out. Their teacher of record was saying things slightly different than what their dissertation chair had told them in the past. And as long as you're keeping an open line of communication, is the most important thing. And then just remember, at the end of the day, your dissertation chair is the one that's with you the entirety of this process, and they're the one that's going to make sure that there's continuity between the different chapters and that everything is written to a certain standard, okay? Not that the TOR isn't keeping it to a certain standard, but the TOR, you're really only with the TOR for that one class. And I'm not even sure, I haven't yet seen anyone have a TOR for multiple chapters of the dissertation yet. I'm only in the second chapter. I don't know if that could be the case still. But just stay on the same page and have an open line of communication, and I believe that will help you stay a lot more stress-free. And then there is the committee member in there as well, and do remember the committee member does have input, okay, valuable input. You need to listen to the committee member, but just remember the dissertation chair is at the top of the pyramid in terms of getting you to the end, the finish line and defending the dissertation, well, for us, hopefully a year from now for my cohort. But, we've talked about how timelines can change for different people. And it does seem like, from my understanding, some of those later chapters, specifically the research chapter, there could be potentially some ways to get behind then. So I guess we'll talk about that more when we get to that course in about 6 months, or 3 to 6 months. Okay, so all right, so actually getting into the course. So once again, it's a 10-week course, 6531 for those that are following along with the course numbers, literature review. Oh gosh, maybe it's actually 6521. Sorry. Okay, so one of your very first things that you're going to do is the thematic grid. So the thematic grid, you're going to be asked to take 10 articles, and you're going to put them into a grid on Sheets or on Excel, where you're going to look at different categories and different elements of at least 10 of your sources. Okay, so this helps you identify which sources are going to be most valuable and which sources you are probably going to be pulling from for different sections. The first assignment says 10 minimum, and that is what's being checked. Okay, there were people in my course that did way more than 10. I believe one person had done maybe like every single one of their sources, which is a lot of work. I don't think it's required for you to do that much, but she wanted to do it because it just helped her visualize how she wanted to break down using her sources. Regardless, it is a good exercise to help you if it's been a while since you have used some of those or read through some of those sources. It does kickstart you a little bit. In reality, are you going to use it past that first time you do it? you may or may not. I know me personally, it did help me initially when I kickstarted, when I was working through that paper, because I did do this prior to doing the paper. So even though the paper I had mostly finished before the class started, I'd actually done that first to just help kickstart the literature review. Another thing that I had done to help kickstart the literature review was to take my concept paper and put in the applicable elements from the concept paper into my literature review, because while yes, sometimes things can change between just the concept paper and 2 chapters later, if it hasn't changed much, a lot of that research is still valuable. And so I'm pulling information from there and I'm putting it in the right places for the literature review, and that honestly helped me get through a significant portion of those 25 pages, to the point where it felt much more manageable to you know, get in front of my computer when I have a significant chunk, maybe not already written, but already identified what's going to be written. And so one of the things I had done, or one of the things I still do, is I give myself little time frames for trying to get like a page done or a section done, and having an outline and having all this information, or a lot of this information, already available does help you get through it a lot quicker. So while that first assignment, there was some discussion, some people, it does feel like busy work for some of those elements, but it can also kickstart you. And I think that's what ACE is trying to do. They're trying to get you ready for the 25 pages, right? It's a lot of work. And like I said, some people loved it. Some people went and did every single one of their sources. So you might be the person that finds that first thematic grid very valuable. So, but you have to do at least 10 for that first assignment. And another thing I want to point out is this is late 2025, September 2025. Some of these assignments can and will change over the time, over the course of as ACE goes along. I've read information from cohorts that were just maybe like even a year ago taking this course, and I know that some things had even changed between then and now. So what I'm telling you might change between when you take the course and when I'm taking the course. So this, just understand that. Okay, so we also one of the early assignments is you're going to do an outline for your chapter. Once again, some people might think it's a little bit of busy work, but it really does help you figure out where the information in your chapter needs to go. And like I said, it really helps me when I'm breaking down, okay, I need to have this, this is my theoretical framework section. This is my etc. etc. It makes it easier for you to recognize where information needs to be plugged in, and so that's another one. I did that prior to writing, and I think it makes a big difference in terms of how quickly you can get your paper to mostly complete, so that way your tour dissertation chair can read it, right? So, okay, another assignment that you'll be working on, and I say assignment, it's just an element of this class, is the reference calculator. So the reference calculator requires that you have a certain percentage of your references within the past 5 years. I believe it was 75% have to be within 5 years. And I'm not 100% sure because mine were, I think I was like 90 something percent. So I wasn't even close to the 75%, but that's mostly because my topic there's a lot of relatively new articles written on it. So it was easy for me to have more more recent articles. I think we might have talked about this in the last chapter, but the school does want you to have your references within 5 years. And there was some discussion because some people look at that as we take where we're at right now and we subtract 5 years, whereas just for example, if I'm in 2025, people say, oh, well, that would be 2020 that we should be able to use, right? But if you count back actually using the months, then it will put you in a slightly different, it's a way to look at it. And honestly, I think that as long as you're around that 5 year mark, I think you'll be okay. But it's 5 years from the end of your projected dissertation defense. So not really 5 years actually where we're in class right now. And I think that's also a confusion too, is some people are looking where we are today. Just note that it is 5 years from your planned dissertation defense. Okay, because that's actually when you're going to get published, right? You're going to get published after you defend the dissertation. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so another thing is there is a part of the calculator that so one is for the references staying within 5 years, and then another one is actually for how many times you are citing each specific reference. So just know that that is on there with the reference calculator. So we're talking about references. How many references exactly do you need? So I don't believe I ever got a hard number, but I did hear between my cohort and previous cohorts a number of between 70 to 80 is acceptable. So I ended up with right under 80, I believe. So I was right around that, and like I said, I finished the class and I had that many references. So I believe that that's probably a good number to go by. And when you include the references that are not in that chapter but will be in other chapters, you should probably be able to get easily to 100 references by the end of your dissertation. So I don't know. It could be that your TOR DC says 60 is fine, and there may be some out there that say that you need to have 85 to 90. I'm just saying where I was right at or right under 80, and that seemed to be fine. I do have references that aren't in that chapter that will be in other chapters, so I do expect to be probably somewhere around 100, give or take. Okay, the third element that you're going to be dealing with many of these lessons is going to be your dissertation checklist. So there's two checklists. There's a qualitative and a quantitative checklist. And that actually, now that I'm thinking about it, that may be for chapter 1. But either way, there's a checklist that you have to follow. And that's going to tell you all of the required elements of the chapter. Okay, so you have to hit all of those points. As a matter of fact, not only do you hit all those points, but you actually have to list what pages or what page you do hit that point. So keep that in mind. You will have to keep track of that. Also, with the checklist, it's a required element to have 4 signatures by the end of the course with your checklist. Okay, so one of those would be yourself, one is the teacher of record, one is the committee member, and one is the dissertation chair. Okay, and there is an order that you have to follow. And one of the things that I've seen in previous chapters and even this chapter that holds people up, if you submit your checklist without the required signatures, or if something's off, you have to redo it, and then you kind of go back into the queue for getting your that module looked at. So make sure you're staying on top of that. So you'll be with your teacher of record for much of the early modules. And then around module 6, you will go take what you've written for chapter 2, and then you'll go to module. Then you'll go to your DC and committee member. And then once they sign off, then in chapter or module 10 rather, you go back to your tour for the final sign off for that, for the course, for the chapter. And so that's where I'm at. I just last week had my tour sign off, and actually technically the only thing that hasn't been completed yet is there is a course completion check that I need to get. The dissertation, my tour did say that she will do that after the course is actually closed. So, because that was something that me and other members of my cohort had talked about. We're like, has anyone signed off? And I actually asked, and that is something that they'll do after. So I expect that to happen sometime this coming week. Okay, so just a couple other things to wrap up. Make sure you're using all the resources that you have available to you. If your cohort has a GroupMe or some type of other messaging app, highly recommend to get on there, because questions that people ask may help you with your problems or situations that you're having. Tutor.com is free to use for up to 7.5 hours, and that's something that I used Tutor for, was to have my APA citations double checked, not citations, but my references checked to make sure all that was right. So as I mentioned in a previous video, I've started to work with an editor, which is a requirement at the end of the dissertation process, but I've found that working with one sooner has made it smoother to get through this chapter. And so it was very very nice to be a little bit less stressed heading into this than I was for some of the other courses that I've taken. And so use your editor if you have one, use Tutor, use GroupMe, and then check the dissertation toolbox, because there is going to be information in there that can help you get through the course smoother. Okay. So really one of the only things that I have to say that that I did struggle with, and it's not just in this specific chapter, it's happened in other ones, is because you're doing a lot of that front end work where you're trying to get as much done as possible before the class even starts, heading into the class. You got to remember, it's a lot of hurry up and wait, where it's turn something in and maybe you don't hear anything for an entire week, and there's a lot of momentum shifts. So you feel like you're getting a lot done, and then all of a sudden you're just kind of stagnant. And since it's not consistent, there was some times where I went back to make changes, and I just didn't have the same flow with writing that I had when I originally wrote it, because I had sat down and I had one train of thought, and now I'm going back a week and a half later, a week later, and I don't have necessarily that same train of thought. And so that is something that I know I struggled with a little bit, and maybe other people might struggle with. That the hurry up and wait approach does make things a little difficult, and with the formula that you kind of have to have everything on that checklist, just make sure you're getting all those things, because you don't want to write something and then go back and realize you've missed a lot of things on the checklist, and then you have to redo essentially your an entire section or the entire chapter. So okay, that is the literature review for chapter 2 for American College of Education. I know this is probably a longer video, and I apologize for that, but these ones probably will end up being longer just because I want to go over so many different things. If there's something I missed, or if you have a question, just go ahead and put it in the comments below, and I will try to get to it. And I apologize if someone puts a comment and I don't respond for a couple weeks. I don't always check this every single day. I actually usually only check it probably once every other week. So so thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it, and I look forward to hearing from you. And I really do love reading your comments. Thank you.